USISPF, Vineet Mittal, founder and chairman, Avaada Group, Mike Haley, senior vice president, research and generative AI lead, Autodesk. Moderating this session is Rajdeep Sardesai, consulting editor, India Today TV. And of course, we also have our guest, Sumant Sinha, CEO, Renew Power, who will also be a part of this panel. Let's have a huge round of applause, please, this being the last session of this evening.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the India Today AI Summit being held almost parallelly to the big AI Summit that the government of India has organized. The first time a summit of this scale being organized in the global south. And we thought we would look at now the big question: can AI really power India's growth story? It's a question where a lot of numbers are thrown at you, and we want to decode those numbers and understand what really will AI do to India's growth story. And I'm delighted to be joined by Vineet Mittal, founder and chairman, Avaada Group, Dr. Mukesh Aghi, US-India Strategic Partnership Forum CEO, Mike Haley, senior VP and research and generative AI lead at Autodesk, and Sumant Sinha, chairman and founder and CEO of Renew. Appreciate all of you joining us here on this. I'm going to start by throwing a number at you because a lot of numbers are thrown with AI. Mukesh Aghi, you start, because at PwC India's AI Edge for Viksit Bharat report released at the World Economic Forum in Davos, it was projected that AI can add 550 billion to 5 key sectors by 2035 in India. Is that hype or is that reality? We want to make this session about cutting through the noise and getting what is the reality. Will AI actually transform India's economy in the manner that is being projected?
Well, it's a combination of hype and reality. You have to understand, it's too early to see where the transformation is going to come in. Yes, in certain sectors such as IT, BPO, we're seeing AI playing a very strong role. But when you get into the other high-end areas such as drug discoveries and other aspect of healthcare or in the energy area, it's too early to say. But I think more important is...
So where is the number coming from? If it's so early to say, that's where I come from. Is there a sense that AI still remains the unknown? We don't know what comes next, and therefore throwing numbers may be the wrong thing to do.
Well, I wouldn't say that numbers can be measured at this stage, because 550 billion is a large number, and I think we have to be very cautious about it. Let's not get into the hype of that, but AI is here for real. And if you don't leverage it, if you don't make it accessible, if you don't make it affordable, and if you don't make it scalable, then it's going to harm the economy and the society and the country.
You know, I have two people here who are with the energy sector, which many believe will be the driving force for this computing power. Suman, you want to go first. Do you believe that the energy sector in a way will drive this computing power of AI and take India to the next level where we could add $550 billion in 5 sectors within the next decade?
Well, you know, the thing is that India is actually very well placed right now. The reason is that in the energy sector, on the power sector particularly, a lot of work has happened in terms of making sure that we are at a point where we have energy sufficiency. And so we are at a point now where if data center demand picks up and creates incremental demand for power, we are in a position to meet it, okay? And that's great news for us, which also therefore means that not only would we have enough computing power for India, but we can also become an exporter of compute. And so that's, in a way, you think about exporting power. That's really what's going to happen in the form of intelligence. So I think we are actually fairly well placed. Now, whether that number is $550 billion or not by 2035, if you think about it, India's GDP is likely to be maybe 15 or 17 trillion by that time. $550 billion is only going to be 3 or 4% of the GDP at that point. It's not a big number. So it is quite conceivable that you can have something of that order of magnitude actually happening by 2035.
Because, I want to throw another number at you, Vineet. India holds nearly 20% of the world's data at the moment, but accounts for only 3% of global data center capacity. Now, can infrastructure expansion of these data centers keep pace to ensure AI competitiveness? Do you believe the Adanis are promising to invest a large amount? Jio is, some states like Maharashtra are at the cutting edge when it comes to data centers, but it's not happening nationally. Do you believe in the next few years there will be an exponential expansion, and will the energy needs be met?
Yes, Rajdeep. If you look at just in Gmail, we are the largest user. Even the corporate emails are going on Gmail or Microsoft. Or I was chatting with someone at YouTube, and more than 700 million users are Indians, and they are the biggest content economy. So if you look at all that data is currently not stored in India, and data is stored in some other country, and since we don't have the data localization policy yet, I don't think the constraint is the infrastructure. The constraint is that all these large companies have kept data wherever it was convenient for them, because there was no regulation regulating it. And I think with the now new Data Act, there will be more stringent norms coming for asking them to store locally. And that time, if you look at based on just existing volume, you are looking at less than 2 gigawatt becoming 20 gigawatt. Some of the forecast is saying it will be 8 to 9 gigawatt, which should be easily doable, because if you look at yesterday's announcement from government itself, 53.5 gigawatt we have added in last 10 months. And with the project which has already been awarded and under construction, we will be completing another 60 to 70 gigawatt of green power alone in the next 12 to 18 months. So if you look at from the power side, we are self-sufficient. If you look at port cities like Mumbai, where multiple optical fibers are terminating, we have the bandwidth, we have the real estate infrastructure. On top of that, we have the talent pool, which is willing to do it successfully. So in my sense, once US realizes that they are struggling for power right now, they are looking at to explore space to do the power, whereas country like India are blessed with abundance of sun, wind, and with water storage and battery, it becomes reliable, predictable, and affordable. And that's the right way to build a data center and hyperscaler.
Okay, so you're saying energy is not a problem. That's not a constraint. But I want to turn to you, Mike Haley. The fact is, and again a data point, 80% of infrastructure that has already been built in the AI space is two countries, US and China. They've taken over the AI space, and it almost seems that the rest of the world is playing catch up. Yes, India accounts for 100 million weekly users of ChatGPT. For OpenAI, this is one of the most important markets. But can a country convert this vast user base and data generation into a strategic advantage without actually investing much more in innovation? Traditionally, we just haven't invested in innovation like the Chinese and indeed the Americans have. So is that the key for us to take advantage of this AI opportunity?
Well, yeah, I think, look, there's definitely an innovation aspect to this. There's no doubt about it. But, you know, India's had a lot of success in watching what the rest of the world fails at. And then when they learn their lesson, say, you know, we're going to take that and we're going to adopt the better approach, and that's what we're going to do. So I don't think there's anything wrong with not being the first to do something. In fact, I think it's actually very advantageous. What I would also say is I think, you know, what we're seeing with data centers is the emergence of an entirely new form of public infrastructure. I mean, this is not just data centers that Google has or Amazon has. This is the emergence of a new form. The last time this happened was in the time of Edison, right? So we're in an entirely new uncharted territory as a planet in thinking of what does it mean to have data centers as a public infrastructure.
You're comparing data centers to Edison and electricity in a sense.
In a sense, I am. Yeah, I mean, I think if you play this forward, data centers and what AI is providing is going to be this is going to be a good that everybody gets access to, right? Now, the way this plays out, to your point, is different in different parts of the world. But this is what happened with energy. You know, different parts of the world did it early, they did it wrong, they did it badly. Other parts of the world learned from it, and then they evolved. So I think there's absolutely the opportunity to do that. You know, and then you know, on the data side too, it's not just about the physical data center. It's about learning to have the right data standards around this, adopting those data standards early, because it's not just the data center, it's all the other parts of the country around it. It's all the water systems, it's the power systems. This is a systems problem. So having the right data sets in place that will allow you to do the right design and analysis first is key. India's got a huge opportunity right now to say, hey, we see what others are doing, we're just going to set that data standard and run with it.
But the fact is, Dr. Aghi, America has already set the standards along with China when it comes to foundational models for AIs. What happens to the rest of the world? Does India watch these foundational models and tag along? Or does India try and create applied AI as its potential growth engine? Where does India stand? Will America, for example, be more than willing, US companies be more than willing to share data with India to give India a slice of this large pie in a way?
Well, India has the data. As you mentioned earlier, 20% of the global data is India. The question is...
How do we store it in India? How do we keep our data sovereignty?
But more than that, I think, you know, by saying we have 20% of the data, it's like telling Venezuela we have the world's largest reserve, but you're not able to do anything about it. We got to do something about this data. And I think the strength of India is on the software side, on the application side. You have to understand with time, the hardware will become plumbing. It's the application side which is going to drive a winnable solution around the world. And I think that's where India has to play a very pivotal role, and it will play a pivotal role by building application for the world itself. So I see a tremendous future on the app side, but as far as the LLM goes, as far as the hardware goes, I think ship has sailed.
The ship has sailed. In that sense, are we playing catch up, or we discover our own model? You've got the Chinese model, very centralized, authoritarian, and you've got the US model, which has been driven by entrepreneurial energies of the private sector. Does India find, Dr. Aghi, its own model?
Well, India has to find its own place. And it's not about model. It's about trying to leverage the data it has. And that can be leveraged by building world-class AI application, which we can basically, it's not just about building a world-class application, it's also about implementing them. India has the resources. Where you look at all the information, by 2030, India will have 20% of the world's global digital workers itself. So a combination of apps, digital worker, I think India can play a much more stronger role.
Mike, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful, because I think the hyperscalers want you to believe that the solution to everything lies in one of their large models, right? Now, the solution to a lot of their stuff lies in their models, but by far not everything. There's unique problems around the world, and as we get into vertical AI, as we get into AI for medicine, AI for infrastructure, AI for manufacturing, this is where a country like India has massive advantages. I guarantee you a ton of that data, that 20% of data that's sitting in India, India is exactly this kind of data. There you have an opportunity to say, let's take that, let's build a solution that is uniquely for the Indian market. It caters to the problems you have here and be a leader in that. There's absolutely an opportunity. You don't have to be replicating and building the same thing that the hyperscalers are building in China or the United
So
States.
what, give me an example of a kind of model. Would be a sort of large language model uniquely suited to Indian conditions?
It could be a large language model. We're now seeing, as many people know, the emergence of world models, and world models are beginning to understand the physicality of the world. So at Autodesk, because our customers are building physical things, where we spend our time in AI is not on language models, because those other people are building those. What we're doing is we're building models that understand geometry, buildings, physics, structure, the manufacturing principles of something. So these are the kind of, this is an example that I'm giving. The same thing would exist in medicine, bioscience, and these other fields. You can start building dedicated models that can actually understand the physical behavior, not the sequence of words that makes it look like it understands it, but the actual understanding of that. So there's a big leap forward just waiting to be tackled.
You know, but there is also a feeling, Sumant, that India has traditionally worked on the principle that government knows best. Government is my bap. And it required the 1991 economic liberalization in a way to break that mindset. Do you believe with AI, the government also needs to recognize the entrepreneurial energies are out there? You need a regulatory framework, but beyond the regulatory framework, you need less and less intervention and more attempts at enabling. I need land, I need energy, I need water. The government can be an enabler. Do you believe the government realizes that with this AI revolution, it can't drive it? It has to be driven by private energy.
Look, I think that's very clear. The government can't set about to build large language models, whether it's in his sector or in some other sector or in medicine, as we saw. I think all of that has to be driven by entrepreneurs. I think that is very clear. I think where the government can help is in providing data sovereignty, so that all the data has to be kept here, number one. Number two, they have to encourage maybe the development of some of these local models, perhaps. They have to also look at how some of these data centers can come up in a way that we have the compute capability and power here. They can play a role potentially in driving some of these chips into India, some of the latest chips, perhaps through trade agreements with the US and other countries that make these chips. So those are the areas where the government can help. I don't think the government can help in actually doing what entrepreneurs need to do. I think that is very clear. I think the other thing is that one of the things that I'm pretty clear that is going to drive growth in AI is going to be the ability for countries to set up data centers and have that capability and have that ability to be done in-house in the country itself. And I think that's where India has a big advantage, because simply of the fact that we were talking about earlier, and this is not to be underestimated, we have a single national grid, for example, right? We can move power around from place X to place Y. If, in fact, the whole AI revolution to some extent depends on power as a constraining factor, then we actually are pretty well placed to address that issue, right? China is as well, of course, but so is India. And I think we have to give ourselves credit for having that capability, and the fact that therefore we have an advantage. We have it more than, let's say, Europe does, or even the US for that matter, right? So I think that's something that we should really take advantage of, and that's an area where the government does actually have a role to play and can be facilitative in making sure that grid development continues to be as strong as it needs to be.
If I can just add something to that.
Yes.
So I completely agree with you, and I think another aspect of that is the data itself. So when you get into these vertical AIs, these industry-specific AIs, that data does not sit on the open internet. One truth. The second truth is no one company has enough data inside them. So now you're sitting with the problem of how do you gather, let's just take in the field, let's take medicine or bioscience. How do you gather enough bioscience data across your entire industry in order to train a local model that's good? Really the only entity that can do that in an unbiased way, hopefully, is the government.
Vineet, you deal with governments over the years. Do you believe that there is a variation within governments? Some states have understood the need to get onto this AI juggernaut. Other states are well behind, and therefore, like we've seen with other sectors of the economy, look at growth rates in some of the southern states, compare that with the growth rates in north and eastern India. Will we also see with AI hubs being created around areas which already have high growth rates? And therefore, India will be geographically divided in this AI revolution. It's not as if 100 billion Indians are going to get equal benefits out of this AI revolution. It will actually widen divides, widen inequalities.
If you look at from the central government perspective, they use their purchasing power to buy the GPUs in bulk and ensure that compute is not an issue for people trying to build AI stack. So if you look at Sarvam today, so I don't agree that India should not build its own stack. Actually,
You think Sarvam can compete with the big players that are already there?
so see, they have started. They have announced with 100 billion token, and see ChatGPT or Anthropy is at trillion. But once you have started with that base, and if you are able to attract the capital, you should be able to technically grow. So the basic science, you have got it right. So my fear is that if you don't start owning up the digital, we are looking towards digital gulami. So it's first we gave the rights to say Googles of these world and WhatsApps of these world to actually get into everyone's life and have all the data stored in some other country. And same mistake we are making with the AI.
So we are already digital gulams.
So
you use the word digital gulami. The truth is, why, let's call us, we are digital gulams. For all the hype, the truth of the matter is the Western world and indeed China is leading this AI race. And as I said, we are playing catch up.
No, so I think what we have to look at, have we realized it? So what is happening now with this approach of government that they can't do it all, but they found that if we can build infrastructure at the cheapest possible cost, which entrepreneurs won't be able to do, then let's make it open to all the entrepreneurs to exploit it, and let's see where we go. So they have not made the similar mistake which was made decades back, where we let Gmails and Microsoft and everything non-Indians come and become part of everyone's life. So I think that way central government has started it well, and organizing this level of global conference nationally. And if you look at the state like Andhra and Maharashtra, they have got it right. Andhra is doing amazing work on setting up even quantum lab. They are going and partnering with the best in the world to even get, forget about GPU, TPUs and the latest one to come here and give the compute on demand and then you can build the local AI stack much better. See, today if you look at in US, what is happening is US needs around 75 gigawatt roughly of data center capacity before 2030. They have grid connectivity of 25 available till 2030, and 10 gigawatt is under construction by the giants. So if you look at from that angle, 49 gigawatt is odd shortage, and if you look at there, the transformer is taking 3 years. If you look at GE also is not able to supply the gas turbines before 2030. So there is an opportunity loss which is already happening to the US, and India can now step in because we are power sufficient and we are able to bring solar, wind and storage in 18 to 24 months. We can become the platform for the US company to provide them data center hyperscaler in India and provide that infrastructure and co-build it.
Yeah, Mukesh, can that happen? We've got this budget which is given a 21-year tax holiday to US companies in cloud services that are willing to invest in Indian-built data center infrastructure.
It's a good start, but you have to understand that if we don't move, we're not moving into digital divide, we're moving into AI feudalism. And I think that's dangerous for society, that's dangerous for countries.
You've used the word AI feudalism. What is AI feudalism?
Basically, you have few leaders in the business world, few companies controlling the whole AI infrastructure from ALMs to chips design, and countries are dependent on that, and we are seeing that happening at the moment. I think India has to play on its strength, and its strength is software. Its strength is trying to build apps on that infrastructure. The challenge is going to be is as you mentioned earlier, can government play a role? I think government can play a role more from the perspective of making sure the environment, the regulation are conducive for entrepreneurs to flourish. Today, if you look at, we basically spend 0.7%, well, 1% of our GDP on R&D, as compared to US, which is at 3.5%, and Israel is 8% itself. So we need to define the laws, change the laws, so the incentive for R&D for companies to get some tax benefits there. But also we have to look at how do we get cheap capital into the country. It is important for entrepreneurs to get those capital so they can flourish. So I think we have to play on our strength, which is AI app, and try to focus on getting cheap capital in the country so entrepreneurs can flourish here.
Mike, you wanted to put in a word, yes.
So if you look at what Anthropic CEO in the morning was chatting with me and saying that they are disrupting entire app development. They came out with the legal stack and few other stack, and we see the Indian IT stocks even going down because they are able to disrupt the programming. So I don't think that depending pure on development and differential wage arbitrage is the right way. I think the time has come where we have the capital, know-how. We are already making chips at nanometer scale. We need to improve, and unless you have that ecosystem, you are not going to succeed. We can keep thinking that world will do it for us, but what is stopping them from censoring it and not supplying it to us 10 years down the line?
But Mike, it comes to that, and it's a point that Mukesh also made in terms of our investment in R&D. I mean, how do you incentivize the new age companies to invest in R&D? It's good to have a summit to see these young startups with great ideas out there, but eventually if you've got to scale up, and in a country of India, scale up and show that they can generate revenues, how are you going to do that without stronger incentivized investment in research and development?
Look, I mean, I agree on the regulation thing. I mean, you've got to create an environment that's conducive to this. Now, I think that there's three aspects to this. There's an educational aspect to it, which includes both the academic research side, but also the fundamental education. Now, I think India is way far ahead in that. I think you've got some great capabilities there to build off, so there's that. Then there's the regulation and the government side, and then there's the economic and business side. And you've got to find the balance of all of those and figuring out the right way to do it. And if you can create an environment, I mean, this is what, I mean, Silicon Valley, where I live, isn't perfect by any means, but it has this balance, you know, that's sort of existed for a while. And it just creates this sort of magical thing. Now, I don't think it means replicating Silicon Valley inside India, for the record. I mean, I think every country has its own unique flavor that you need to create for this, but I think you also have a very young demographic in this country. You have an enormous number of graduates coming out. So you have this opportunity to educate and create this sense of, you know, I can experiment, I can try things, and I can do it, and it's safe to fail, and I can do that. Creating that culture, I think, is really, 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 really important.
You know, Sumant, your own example from renewables, for example. 20 years ago, who would have thought that India would emerge as one of the leaders in renewables? 30 years ago, who would have thought that economic liberalization would transform India in the way it has? Is the glass, there are two ways. Journalists tend to look at the glass as half empty. My job is to puncture holes in the bubbles that we see around us, because there's far too much of PR that goes on. Let's be real. Do you believe that we can become a leader in AI? Or have we missed the bus? I want an honest answer. I met someone senior who said India's got a lot of catching up to do. Can we be realistic for once rather than hype? Are we getting caught up in hype hysteria?
No, look, I think that the world has made very rapid and very sudden progress on the whole AI front.
Did we miss that bus over the last 10 years?
Look, I think that it's, you know, as somebody said, there are maybe a couple of countries that are ahead of everybody else. But India is sort of, I would say, just a step behind, maybe 2 steps behind. But certainly we're not, along with everybody else and the rest of the chasing pack. We are somewhere in between, right? And I think the government is trying its best right now through summits like we're having at this point to raise the awareness, raise the ante, push the private sector a little bit harder, provide whatever they can from an enabling standpoint to create that framework, right? Now it's really up to us in the private sector to push the ball forward, right? And you said, you rightly said...
Because renewables, let's take software, for example. Software was built by entrepreneurs in and around Bengaluru at the outset who took their chances, Do you see that happening with AI?
Look, I'm not directly dealing in that ecosystem of AI startups, but I'm pretty sure that Indians are entrepreneurial, they are smart, they are hungry, and they're now very well educated, and there's lots of them, and there's a lot of reverse brain drain going on as well. We are much better integrated into the global ecosystem, especially on things like AI now than we were earlier. So I would be very surprised if over the next several years, we don't have a lot of new AI-based startups that come up that eventually end up becoming quite successful. And keep one more thing in mind, Rajdeep, the US is the best country for marketing, right? They do a fantastic job, right? So just because there's so much hype and there are all these companies that have these trillion-dollar valuations, doesn't mean that it isn't driven by a lot of hype as well, right? So I think reality is going to catch up. I think Indian companies will catch up. I have a lot of confidence that is going to happen.
Mukesh, are you as buoyant about the next decade? Is this going to be India's AI decade?
I believe that this is the second Y2K movement for Indian industry.
It's the Y2K moment again.
Again. And when you look at the Indian software industry grew because government had no idea what this animal was. And the entrepreneur grew it. I think if you create the same environment for the entrepreneur and bring the capital, which is cheap, you will see India flourish in this area.
You're as confident?
I'm actually, I'll give you two examples. When I started in the IT sector, my clients used to say you don't even have telephone line and you are going to provide tech support from India. So from no landline to direct wireless. And second time when I started solar, I bought solar panels from First Solar and they refused to sell me because India had no solar plant of even 1 megawatt. And they said, partner with German before I sell you the solar panel. And in 16 years now we are setting up world's largest. In 22, in middle of COVID, we set up the world's largest. And now we are setting up multiple such large projects. So I think if you don't believe in Indian talent, then that's the mistake world is making. I see that this has lots and lots of opportunity. And as an Indian, I think we all will contribute towards exploiting it.
That's good to hear. I think that deserves an applause because I think, you know, what we've done with solar energy, what we've done with renewables is quite remarkable. Mike, you were nodding your head. Are you impressed with what India is attempting to do? As I said, there is this huge talent pool. You mentioned that as well. The challenge is providing them the opportunity and creating that enabling environment. Is there any lesson that you would like to tell young Indian entrepreneurs from your experiences in Silicon Valley?
Yes, there's one word: be adaptable.
Sorry?
Adaptability. And it's actually the reason why I think things are going to work in India, because I think what I see in India is actually an entire country that is used to being adaptable. And in the future, none of us know what the AI future is going to look like. There's a lot of people are telling you right now. The reality is none of us know what this is going to look like, even us that are working directly in the field. If you have adaptability at your core, you've got the secret sauce to how to figure this out. So I really do think I'm very bullish for India.
You know, the word adaptability has different connotations in India. The Hindi word is jugaad at times. The other word, of course, is that we are able to, we can handle situations far better than most other people, if I may say so, in the world. We know how to face adversity. But Sumant, you wanted to make a point.
I was just going to say that, look, as you rightly said, in renewables, we got off to a slightly later start. But we've had a fantastic public-private partnership. That's worked very well. Government has made policies, has encouraged, the private sector has stepped up. And to the point where last year, we actually added more solar capacity in India than the US did. So we were actually the second largest country in terms of solar capacity addition. So we can make it happen.
Okay. I think that's a nice positive note on which to conclude this India Today AI Summit. The future is already here, and it is for India to seize the moment and make sure that this vast country with its potential demographic dividend is able to exploit the moment to our advantage. You've given us lots of food for thought, and I appreciate each and every one of you joining us here at the India Today AI Summit. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a very big hand. Wonderful to have you here today. Thank you.
I'm all right.